Call the roll, please.
Roll call. Trustee Antonetts? Trustee Vaughn?
Here.
Trustee McMurray?
Here.
Also present, we have Joe Schaefer, our Director of Zoning and Development, Paul Benson, our Deputy Zoning Director. We also have Simon Bell, Deputy Zoning Inspector, and we also have our zoning attorney, Pete Griggs, is here. This meeting of the Genoa Township Trustees will be recorded. The meeting audio and written minutes will be available on Genoa Township's website, genoatwp.com, or by contacting Genoa's fiscal office. At this time, before we call the meeting to order, I'm going to recuse myself because this is my neighbor, and I will be back for the second part of this meeting.
All right. So we will call the following hearing to order at 5:02 p.m. I'm going to ask anyone who wishes to speak on this matter to please be sworn in. Do you swear to tell the whole truth, or to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Do.
Great, thank you. Elizabeth Ann Berlin Trust via Drew Berlin requesting approval of a zoning map amendment to rezone approximately 0.077 acres located in the northeast portion of 6870 Floor Drive, PIN 317-240-0010-13000 from Planned Residential District, PRD, to Rural Residential, RR, ZC case number 2026-01. The legal notice for this meeting was printed and published on February 12, 2026 in the Delaware Gazette and posted on the Genoa Township Hall on February 21st, 2026. An attempt to send notice of this meeting to adjacent property owners was also made. The following will be marked Exhibits A through I. Exhibit A, legal notice. Exhibit B, affidavit of advertisement. Exhibit C, sign-in sheet. Exhibit D, application and plans received December 2nd, 2025. Exhibit E, DCRPC recommendation made January 29th, 2026. Exhibit F, trustee acknowledgement of the Zoning Commission's recommendation made on February 10th, 2026. Exhibit G, staff memo dated March 2nd, 2026 from March 9th, 2026. Exhibit H, staff technical review dated March 2nd, 2026 from March 9th, 2026. Exhibit I, all public comments received by the zoning department between December 2nd, 2025 and March 9th, 2026. Staff report.
All right, I'm not going to belabor or read the entire report since I think we're all pretty familiar with this. So, but just for the benefit of those in the audience or maybe listening who aren't familiar with this topic, I'll just cover it real briefly because I know it well. So essentially, if you recall, Courtyard's a big walnut. We had the consent decree rezone this property to PRD. At the time, during that process, we asked EPCON about this sliver of land and whether or not it was in or out of the plan. And they said, oh yeah, it's in. It's being rezoned to PRD. We're like, okay. So we included it. Then later, late summer, early last fall, I got notice that there was a lot transfer happening between, I guess now it's Arroyo Capital LLC, I think that's the name, something close to that, and Mr. Berlin transferred this over to him. And I sort of started asking questions and talked to Dave Riepenoff, who was legal counsel on the case, and I said, hey, can they do this? Because it wasn't accounted for in the plan. And it turns out, since the township doesn't approve lot transfers, we just get copied and sort of notified on them. I made regional planning aware of it, but I said, you guys do whatever you have to do. I'm not going to interject here because the township doesn't necessarily have a role, but I am going to tell the applicant once they come back to plat, it's going to be a problem because the plat's not going to match the consent decree. And so they sort of said, okay, yeah, we'll deal with that when we get to that bridge. And then a few months later, we got to that bridge. And they wanted to plat. And I said, well, we got to sort this strip out. So, you know, again, we worked with Mr. Riepenhoff, and as you know, prior to your meeting, prior to Thanksgiving, we received some legal advice on that matter, and, you know, pursuant to that legal advice, I talked to Mr. Berlin, and he submitted shortly thereafter on December 2nd. So this is what we're doing. So basically, legal advice is just a so what turns out is Mr. Berlin's actually owned this strip of land the whole time. There was a deed overlap, but he's been paying insurance on it, and he actually is the full owner in it, of it. They just had to do a quick claim deed, I think, to eliminate the deed overlap and the paperwork and fully make it all clean on the books. But that means Mr. Berlin now had a sliver of the PRD, Courtyards of Big Walnut, zoning on his strip of land. And if he ever wished to do anything in the future, that might be problematic for him. So I told him, probably better now to just get it cleaned up, down zone it back to RR, and pursuant to the legal advice we got, that'll be sort of the representation that the township's cool with all of this, and okay that this sliver of land is not technically part of the PRD. So that's what we're doing. So he applied in December. The commission, the only reason for the delay in the commission was because of how the timing worked with regional planning because of Christmas, and when their meeting fell, he couldn't get it on their December agenda, so he had to wait to the January agenda for it to be recommended by the RPC, and the zoning commission statutorily can't vote on it until they have that recommendation from the RPC. So everything got held up a month, so the commission finally got a chance to look at it with the RPC recommendation at their February meeting, voted recommend approval. You acknowledged that approval the following night last month, and that's what brought us here. So there's no development plan to show you. Mr. Berlin, I know he's talked about some possible lot split ideas in the future, but nothing concrete at this time. There's no development plan requirement because it's just the down zoning to rural residential. This is about as straightforward as it gets. So with that, Madam Vice Chairwoman, I'll turn it back over to you.
Very good. Mr. Berlin, would you like to make your presentation? Just turn your mic on.
Mine's short and sweet. That was an excellent summary of what we got going here, and I've just always owned the ground, and the only mistake I made is I probably overlooked the fact that they were sending it through their approval process simply because of all the litigation and everything, and it was hard to talk to people, but he did an excellent job of summarizing, and I appreciate the fact he brought it up to me so that we can get it back to where it used to be.
Okay.
So that's it.
Very good. Thank you. Any public comment at this time? Okay, none being heard. Any discussion?
No, it's pretty straightforward. I don't have anything further to add or any questions.
Okay. All right. So, do you want to do roll call?
Well, you'll have
Gotta make a
someone will have to make
Oh,
the motion
read this first.
Got to make a motion.
We'll make a motion. Okay. So, okay.
So you can continue it, or we can approve
Prove
it.
it.
Or
Okay.
you can deny it. So you
Oh,
make one of the motions, and then
Okay,
we vote.
I gotcha. I was reading the first one. I'm like,
Right.
wait, this is, okay.
Those are the options.
Those are the options. Okay. So I move to concur with the zoning commission's recommendation of approval and thus approve without modifications the zoning map amendment, aka rezoning requested by Elizabeth Ann Berlin Trust, which seeks to rezone approximately 0.077 acres located at 6870 Flora Drive from the planned residential district, PRD, to rural residential district, RR, as further described, detailed, and illustrated in the materials of the subject zone application ZC case number 2026-01, also known as 6870 Floral Drive / Berlin rezoning, and furthermore incorporating exhibits A through I. In accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, this motion to approve the rezoning request, which is subject to referendum, will go into effect 30 days after today, March 9th, 2026, and is based on the following findings of facts and conclusion. 1, said amendment is found to be consistent with Genoa Township Comprehensive Plan pursuant to Section 108 of the Genoa Township Zoning Resolution, or said amendment is
Oh,
found.
you don't need to read
Oh,
that.
sorry. Can I get a second?
Just, I second.
Okay. Discussion?
None here.
None being heard. Roll?
Roll call, trustee Antonetts,
Yes.
trustee McMurray.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right.
Paul went out there,
You want to
so.
go get her?
We didn't close the last meeting, though. I just realized that. Is that okay?
You can do it now.
Yep, I'll go ahead and close it. The hearing is closed at 5:13 PM. We can come back into session for the other one. Go to page 5.
Okay. At this time, I will call the following continued hearing for ZC 2024-05 to order at 5:12 PM. And I will note that the legal notice and exhibits were read at a previous meeting, and I ask everyone who wished to speak on this matter to stand and be sworn in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, thank you. The following exhibits were amended or updated. Exhibit G, all public comments received by the zoning department between November 12th, 2024 and March 9th, 2026. Exhibit H, staff memorandum, originally presented January 5th, 2026 with a revision date of March 9th, 2026. So at this time, I'll turn it over to our zoning director, Joe Schaefer, for a staff report.
Thank you. And speaking of Exhibit H, that's what I'm going to go through. So I'm just going to touch on, again, just like the last meeting, just the revisions.
Right.
And there's actually less than what you even see here because some of the changes it was the same changes being made in multiple districts.
Okay.
So to go through the first part of the memorandum, the only thing that's really changed in there is Trustee McMurray and I continue to have discussions about some of the technological solutions moving forward. I just want to note one of the newer ideas that came up, and I don't know if it's going to be in the near future or maybe just on a to-do list later. We did see a module that has some AI capabilities where it's sort of like AI customer support where primarily I'm thinking of it like if someone's after hours or on a weekend has a zoning question, we can feed some of the information to the AI and it can at least spit out, hopefully some basic responses to get people at least maybe oriented in the right direction. Now I have some, I don't want to say concerns, but you got to be cautious with the AI, right? Because, it can sometimes give out wrong answers. It's only as good as the info you feed it and as good as the program you're using.
Can we hold down the discussion in the back? Sorry. Hard to focus.
But I do think it'd be helpful, if someone, hey, do I need to pull a permit for a deck? It'd be nice if they could just put that in the AI. And it'll help people navigate stuff on the website too, because there's a lot of stuff on the website, so it might help them just get to the information they're looking for faster. Obviously, it's not a substitute for human interaction. That's never the intent. Obviously, we'd want people calling us during the day, and we would definitely want a disclaimer on there. In fact, the module we looked at had that kind of disclaimer of this is just the legal disclaimer that, the AI could be mistakes, and, to get an official determination, you still need to contact the township. So we're looking at that, and that would be more than just a zoning thing. That'd be like a township website thing. So I mentioned it to Leslie. She said she looked at it actually when we did the last website revamp. She wasn't quite ready to tackle it yet. She said it's on her list of things to look at the next time we're up for a redo on the website. So
Can we pause and can I get Attorney Griggs' opinion on that?
yeah, I'd like to hear it too, actually.
I mean, as long as the disclaimer's on there. And ultimately, I think when they file, if like the application issue, they'd have to submit it to staff and staff would review it. So there's
Oh,
always
yeah.
going to be that backstop there. So I think as long as you give a disclaimer, I don't really have an issue with it. I'm
Yeah.
not sure I've seen anybody do it yet, but
Okay,
it's kind of cutting edge technology, so.
okay, thank you.
So just something we're looking at. Like I said, it's not necessarily in the near future, but it is something that's on the list
Be
of
looked
things
at,
we're
yeah.
being mindful of. So jumping into the code changes, because that's what we're really here for. Again, I'm just going to touch on the stuff that we talked about. So Mr. Griggs did finish his work we asked him to do with all the revisions. He got those out to me last week. He and I had a good phone call, went through some things, and then I was able to incorporate everything into it. So that's what I'm going to touch on. So I'm going to bounce sort of quickly to leave plenty of time for comment and discussion. So sections 10401 and 10404, we asked Mr. Griggs to redraft the language. That's the section that has to deal with the interpretation of the zoning code. He's done that, so the language you now see it is reflective of his review and drafting. There were a couple changes. So the legal changes that Mr. Griggs worked on specifically are in green, and then stuff in blue is stuff that I tweaked that was sort of related to the stuff he did that I realized, oh, we need to fix this in other areas to make sure everything is syncing up. So one of the changes I made, actually this is related to a definition change later on in the document, but in section 11702G, it's the section that talks about permit exemptions. I just added the term earthwork to the subsection title, and then I also added a couple of additional earthwork type of projects there just for greater clarification. So I added the terms berms, embankments, grading, and tiles to the list, just for further clarification and understanding. Also, again, as we sort of mentioned at the last meeting, having some of those keywords in the document will help when someone's searching the document, because it'll find those keywords and they'll get a hit. So that's why I also wanted to add them. Another change related to, so actually I'm going to jump one ahead and then a couple back. So Mr. Griggs reviewed section 30706, which is the variance approval section, and actually recommended that section be deleted. It's unnecessary, so I went ahead and deleted that. Related to that change, I made some adjustments in 30702 and 30705 just to sync up that language with what he had drafted. And also, I wanted to make sure it's very clear that all of these determinations are as made by the BZA, because they are the ones making the decision. Moving ahead into Article 4, Section 402. It's the definitions section. Mr. Griggs gave us drafted definitions for the new term of construction as well as the new term of foundation. He also helped us revise the definitions of short-term rental and short-term rental complex pursuant to the conversation we had at the last meeting about some of the tweaks we wanted to do there. He also looked at the definition we have for average grade, because that's been brought up a couple times in public comment and during the meeting, and he actually found that the definition we currently have is sufficient. I've also done some homework on that with another builder I know and asked him, hey, can you look at this? Does it make sense? And he generally said yes. There were some other thoughts on possibly, different ways to height measuring methodologies and some issues that they've run into, but generally speaking, this definition works and is accurate. It made sense to him. So moving on, we're now jumping to Article 6. Section 60206, Paul. This is language that Mr. Griggs drafted regarding sort of the Swimply situations and some of those other very, very short-term rentals we're seeing of components of properties. He and I put our heads together to come up with what you have there in front of you. I think it's going to read and work well. The challenge here was we didn't want to accidentally prohibit like long-term, like someone renting a house or some other rentals that we normally would not get involved with and are otherwise completely legal. So it took a little bit of wordsmithing, but I think we've gotten there. But obviously, if you feel like we need to work on it further, you can let us know. That same language was also added to SR and PRD, being residential zoning districts. We ended up, I think, not adding that kind of language in for the commercial districts, because by and large, we didn't want to prohibit make it be interpreted incorrectly that we're prohibiting someone from renting out a tenant space, which that is not. So as long as whatever they're renting and doing is a commercial activity that's permitted in that zoning district, we don't necessarily care if they're renting it outright unless there's some other zoning conflict. But the use itself is a non-issue. So obviously, if they're doing a use that's not going to be permitted, hopefully that gets flagged in the use table, and then we have the provision that basically says you can't do a use in this district unless the use table says you can. We would attack it from that angle. So we're going to see how that works. You know, and frankly, the renting out the subcomponents is primarily more of a concern in the residential because we don't want to see that commercial character bleed over into the residential areas. You know, if there was a little bit of residential character that bled over into the non-residential, I'm not sure they'd be nearly as much of a concern, but obviously the opposite is a significant concern to residents. Then if we jump to 603.11b, so at the last meeting I mentioned, we added some language about prohibiting the parking of vehicles on grass, because I was actually surprised we don't have that in there. So we added that language. We did get a public comment noting that there was a little bit of concern about what might be truly temporary situations that, you know, if enforced as it had previously been written, might prevent people from temporarily being able to do that for whatever reason they may have. So we adjusted it and now added a time frame limitation. The time frame limitation I opted to go with is similar to the time frame we have for large temporary signs that get put up for stuff like grad parties and whatnot. So basically, 72, basically a weekend, right? That's sort of what you're looking at, 72 hours. That's sort of the line of thought. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily have to be a weekend, but that was sort of the thought process behind it. Friday, Saturday, Sunday type of deal in a 30-day period. So we felt like that added sort of the reasonableness and a little bit of leeway for those temporary situations. We know some of the HOAs are babysitting that issue anyway, but obviously not all properties are in an HOA, so we wanted to have some rules. And my guess is this will get probably mostly used just in the worst, when we have really bad offenders. You know, we're not going to be in the business of going out and driving the entire township and looking at 8,000 homes to see if someone's got a car parked in their grass for a couple hours on a Saturday when they're getting ready to go camping or something. That's not the intent of this at all. This is, you know, the egregious offenders is what we would be primarily focused on. Also, I pointed out, you know, we don't regulate parking in public right-of-ways. So that would be a police matter. And even if the car was parked along the street and part of its wheels are in the grass, number one, that grass is probably also part of the right-of-way, so it would still fall outside the purview of zoning. And again, unless there's a sign that says you legally can't park there, generally you can. Or at least police can't necessarily enforce it unless there's a sign there prohibiting it that's legal. So that's just cleaning up the language there. And again, Mr. Griggs helped us look at that, make sure he was comfortable with what we came up with. And that verbiage was repeated in basically every zoning district. So that's why you see it repeated numerous times. So the next section I'm going to jump to is 110407A.
Let me jump in here real quick.
Yes, sir.
Are we certain we want to implement this in rural residential? People can't park their car in the grass in rural residential that may be 15-acre parcel.
I mean,
Just asking.
I think that's a point worth discussing.
I think there was an email of someone that questioned whether that makes sense to be able to enforce that on such a big lot.
That was a person who had a 2-acre lot, and I think the concern was if they have company over, they want them to be able to park in the grass, which I think Joe addressed by, yeah, the 72-hour rule. We're talking vehicles that sit in your front lawn for a month.
That might be,
Yeah, a
broken
month.
down.
Yeah.
okay. I just remember seeing that email. I wanted to bring
My guess on the larger properties, it's probably, if that happens, A, is anyone even going to see it to report it? And B, is it going to be there long enough by the time I get out? If it happens Friday night, by the time I get out Monday morning, it's probably
It's gone.
gone. And at that point, it's remedied itself. I can't retroactively necessarily deal with it, so. But yeah, I mean, I think that's an important point to take into account.
And when this was brought up, Joe, you said that other entities have these rules in place, correct?
This is fairly common.
It's pretty common? Okay.
Yeah, it's probably to avoid the, like you said, Mark, the cars that are broke down and they're just creating an eyesore.
Yeah, it's a balance between, we don't want to necessarily infringe on people's rights who definitely bought into some of those larger parcels in rural residential because they want some of that freedom and don't want us getting involved in their business, and rightfully so. And, trying to make sure it doesn't get too far the other direction where it's just starts becoming junkyards, or even if it's not junkers, just, cars absolutely everywhere.
Okay.
So that revision was then made in all the I got ahead of myself. So the next section we're jumping to is 110407A, which Paul has pulled up. This is the noise section. You had wanted Mr. Griggs to go through the noise standards and provide us some new noise standards that we feel like we might actually be able to enforce and have some measurable, less subjective content to it. So he's done that, given us some of that language. We've gone ahead and inserted that language in all the non-residential zoning districts, as well as the swimming pool section, which also had a noise language in it. So, I imagine Mr. Griggs has dealt with this issue probably on the enforcement end more than once. So I trust that they know what works and what they think will stand up when it comes to actually having to enforce it.
At what point you, in some of these sections, had decibel readings, like 60 decibel or
That's in
something?
the conditional use section for some of those, like the auditoriums and the outdoor theaters and stuff.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think we're trying to make it simple
Yep.
from an enforcement perspective. So,
Yeah, if we get into decibels, then we've got to have the
right kind of-
equipment and the training and the certifications. Though, in the studies, those you'd probably want to reserve for like a true large use that would probably be doing that kind of study anyway.
Is low level enforceable and measurable?
so that's the reason why, so kind of two key components of this. One is ordinary sensibilities. And then the other one is plainly audible with a distance requirement.
Okay.
So that is essentially kind of a two-pronged approach that was upheld by the Supreme Court in a, believe it or not, a City of Columbus dog barking ordinance. And they upheld that.
Okay, great.
As being specific enough and not void for vagueness.
Okay.
So that's why we kind of added some of that language in there.
Okay, great.
I will point out, if there's any currently legally authorized noise being made on sites right now, we can't, that's going to be somewhat grandfathered in. We lost our TV connections. They'll work on fixing that while I talk.
Movie.
So, but just that note, because we do get those questions, not a ton, but from time to time about noise. Largely, I tend to try to defer noise enforcement over to the police because they enforce the board's noise resolution that actually I believe Mr. Griggs drafted for us 20 years ago probably. And that resolution matches the ORC, and the ORC states in the noise resolution what you can control and what you can't control.
And that's typically where you're going to see your enforcement is through that independent noise resolution adopted by the board and through the police department. So
They're going to have more teeth, and obviously, most of these infractions occur not during sunny 9 to 5 work hours. They happen weeknights, overnight, 6 a.m. in the morning, times we're not there, but there's certainly a cruiser out on the road who can observe those conditions. So, and we also can utilize police to collect information for us during some of those off hours. If they have that evidence, then I can use it. Doesn't necessarily have to be the zoning inspector who collects the evidence. We just have to somehow legally obtain the evidence. So if we get it legally, then we can still act upon it. But police is probably going to be more effective generally in a lot of situations.
Okay.
Again, that got made in numerous sections. So now we are jumping all the way to section 1609 in the general standards. This is the accessory building and structures section. Mr. Griggs provided at your request a sample accessory building chart for your consideration. I opted to not put it in it. I thought maybe the board wanted to discuss this a little bit, but however, you can see my recommendations in the memo is I don't believe incorporation of this chart is really necessary. To me, we already have setbacks, we already have lot coverage restrictions, we have height restrictions, we have total number of building for the entire lot already in there. I feel like this adds another layer of complication. We're already having people who are struggling to do the lot and building coverage calculations. So to me, it was just an added layer that really was not doing anything additional beyond what the current standards were already doing. And again, properties and HOAs, the HOAs are going to a lot of them go above and beyond what we even have. So we try to stay as, least restrictive as we can. And then we let those neighborhoods that do have HOAs, if they want to be more restrictive, more power to them. Sometimes I think that's counterproductive because sometimes they'll outright prohibit them, and then that's how you get a lot of people putting everything in their garage, and then they park all the cars out on the driveway in the street, and then so it creates other downstream problems. So sometimes I wish some of the HOAs would actually just allow them with certain architectural standards because I feel like it would actually prevent issues in certain situations. So, but again, I'll do whatever the board thinks is appropriate there. It was just a very voluminous chart, so I didn't want to put it in there and have to rework all the other text around it unless the board wanted to go that direction. Next section is section 161402C. This is just more noise provisions. This is just the noise provisions and the general standards. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and skip that because that's the section that talks about swimming pools and noise and loudspeakers. So it's the same general language that you saw in the districts, just modified slightly to fit the pool section.
Okay.
And then similarly, in section 170206, I took Mr. Griggs' language and put it into the general noise standards that we had established for conditional uses. The decibel stuff is all still there. This had to deal with the stuff that when we're not dealing with decibels, some of those other situations. So that's in there too. So now, hopefully, if I caught all of it, all the noise stuff should now be consistent throughout the document,
Okay.
which I think is going to help a lot. Again, probably mostly will fall under police, but it's still good for the document to be consistent with itself, obviously. And here goes the TVs again. Jumping to 270109, these were the plan development review standards that I had drafted, inspired by the Boardman Township zoning code we had looked at, but not a verbatim pasting of them because I didn't feel like their language was going to work for us, so I drafted some new language. Mr. Griggs has reviewed it per your request, and he was content and thought it was sufficient and didn't see any legal issues with it. So that talks about all the changes and revisions. The only other things I'm going to note is if you recall at the last meeting, there was 3 different sections of the Boardman Township zoning resolution I had opted not to put into the code because I wasn't comfortable with the language and didn't think it was needed or possibly the right fit for us. I asked Mr. Griggs to look at that just to see what his thoughts were on it, and he agreed with my assessment that he didn't think any of that language was going to be needed or right for Genoa Township. So with that, I am concluding my presentation and will be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. You want to hear public comment first? Sure. All right, we'll open up to public comment. We'll ask if you state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Rick Wieland, 9500 Britton Woods Drive, Galena. One question I have right off is where can I get a copy of what Joe was just talking about? Because when you guys put stuff up on the screen and we're sitting in the audience, we can't see it. All we can do is hear what you're talking about. So is there a copy that you guys are looking at right there now that I can get?
We have a document that Joe sent us when, I don't know, Friday, maybe?
Website.
The memorandum
That-
isn't.
You can ask
That
for a
memorandum, how
copy.
can I get a copy of that memorandum with all this stuff in there? is
You
what I'm
can
asking.
request a copy of it,
Yeah,
but
I'll make a note of it right now for you.
How come it can't be put on the agenda? Is there a reason?
I think it's evolving. I wasn't looking at this. I was looking at Paul's
Right,
scrolling.
but I couldn't see it, so that's why I'm bringing it up. If I could have had this earlier, it would have been ideal, see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I couldn't, and it's not available when you walk in here. If there was a copy for us to see, whoops. If there was a copy to see when we came in, it'd be handy.
That's intentional because the audience of the memorandum, the intended audience is the board. And I want to make sure I have the opportunity to present it to the board.
And it
You're hearing it from me.
does contain legal advice. So
Is it a public record?
if you want it to be.
I believe it is. Oh. Are you saying it's not a public record?
I'm saying that it does contain attorney-client privilege. However, it's up to the Board of Trustees as the holder of the privilege. So if they want to release it to the public.
I don't mind that the public sees this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I don't have a problem with
We're
it. I'm
okay
just
with
saying
that.
that's part of the reason, as Joe
Hadn't
has
put it
kind of
up.
stated, you know, it's through work with our office to you, which you are our client. So, but by all means, if the board wants to, I have no issues with it.
Okay,
Do they need to make a motion to that effect?
No, I think we're fine
okay.
If they wanna
Consensus,
post
you
it.
can, Joe knows that you've requested it. We'll send it to you.
Can we get that in the future then by requesting it, what, 2 or 3 days before a meeting, or how
I
can we do
would
that?
say,
I think it's going to depend on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and I won't be able to release it until the board
because
finds.
attorney-client privilege, there may come a time where trustees sitting here may not want it released for one reason or another because of what the attorney has advised us to do or not do.
Yeah, there's only been very limited circumstances in the past. I can think of maybe in my 10 and a half years, maybe twice the board has waived privilege on it. It's generally not recommended, but for circumstances that existed at the time, the board took.
If
those
this document didn't have attorney-client privilege in it, it would be a public record, right? So,
Got it.
Would it need to be reviewed and that attorney-client privilege redacted so that it could become a public record or not?
yeah, I mean, you could redact the attorney-client privilege portions of it. I don't think that's necessarily needs to be done because the board's already told you you can get a copy of it. But in terms of timing and when things become available, I mean, that's, you know, absent any public record exception, you know, that's up to the board.
I would prefer that it was after we've had the opportunity in this setting to be able to discuss it, and then we can make the determination if it's something that we want to put on the record, because I think Joe's just gonna continue adding to this document, and, you know, there may come a time when there's something in there that we would want redacted versus just putting it up prior to the meeting.
Although
That
I
would
am
be-
hoping we're getting close.
I know, we're getting close. Yes, getting close, getting close.
Well, that's what we're talking about is transparency on some of this
Yes,
stuff.
exactly.
And so I'm approaching it from a standpoint, you know, of not having this information and then having to come back at the next meeting and bring it back up again instead of, because we're not opening us up to public comment until we come up here to speak. If you guys would let us comment during some of his stuff, then we could address it at that point, but
But taking that into consideration, the draft of the document has been available to the public. This is just Joe's highlights of these are the changes that we looked at. Either we chose to change it or not to change it. You've had the information.
we have not had any of the information that you guys have put edits to.
This you've had. It's on our website.
But that doesn't have your edits in the questions and stuff.
It has, the edits are there. This is just an explanation of the edits.
And what's being edited was all discussed at the last meeting. We said.
Right, so we have
went
to go
it.
through all that, so a
He's
public,
just keeping a tally sheet so that we can stay organized.
you guys can, but there's no way for the public to see that, see what I'm saying, because he's not marking it that this was brought up by the trustees at this time.
Date that the edits took place.
Exactly.
And now we're making it available to you, so you should be fine.
I'm just talking moving forward and stuff
Yep.
too on that, because that goes back to Exhibit G.
But we've also said that we want to see it and be able to decide whether we're going to release it on a case-by-case basis, depending what's in there. I can't predict the future, so I don't know what could be in here that
When did you guys get that then? Was it at,
last week. It's very recent.
yeah,
We also can't fulfill public records for records that don't yet exist.
Correct.
Even if it wasn't privileged, we don't take, hey, in the future, can I get all these? We've never done that. we've always been taught not to do that, actually.
Because the same question comes up with Joe on staff reports for some of the zoning committees and that type of stuff.
Correct.
And he normally doesn't have them ready until the Friday before the meeting coming up the next week
And
or
we don't get
whatever.
those until then either.
But there's no way for the public to get that stuff unless they call every 2-3 hours and see if it's made yet, or if there's no changes to it or whatever. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how, is there a way that the public can get that information before the meetings?
They would have to request it every time. Again, the intended audience of those documents is the applicant and the board. And I don't think it's appropriate for me to just broadcast all of that out prior to the meeting. If anything, especially if I was an applicant, I'd be mad because I feel like you were stacking the deck against me in that they haven't even gotten a chance to read it, and the board hasn't even gotten a chance to hear it straight out of staff's mouth, and now they're already getting questions and comments, possibly in advance of the meeting even about it. So to me, it's about order of operations procedure. This is the order we should be.
And when does the applicant get your staff report, or do
They
they?
generally get it the same day you guys get it.
Okay.
But it is a public record, so I mean, if someone puts in a request and says, can I see this report?
We never
we can
know
do
when
it.
we're going to get it. It's whenever he has time to complete it, and a lot of times he'll say, hey, it's a work in progress, I'm working on it, I'll get it to you as soon as I can.
Could it be passed out at the meetings when people show up at the meeting then at all, or not? Would it be available at that time? Since you guys have it up here at the board, if a member's
I
coming
only
in
have
from
it
the,
in paper form because
That's
I
all we
printed
need.
it at home. They don't give it to us. They email it to us.
they're either have to put it online, how about if they had paper form for, you can see how many people are showing up here, unless we had,
I see that.
unless we had 50 people showing up, we might not need 50
All I can
copies,
say is
so.
we'll discuss it. I don't know. We need to discuss that
Yeah, we need to
in-house.
discuss that then
Okay.
or whatever, that was
All right.
one issue.
What else do you have?
Plus, you brought up, as far as, when that is brought up, we talked about having public comment possibly at the end of the meeting and stuff sometimes too, instead of the beginning, or maybe both, for you guys to consider moving forward. So I'd like to have you guys keep thinking about that coming up.
Okay.
Going back to a couple things that Joe said or whatever that I was writing down there, I just had a couple questions about a couple of his things as far as what he's got, so. On Article 4, if Paul could pull that back up, because I couldn't see it.
What part of Article 4?
It's probably on some of the definitions, it looks like. Is there a new definition in there for construction?
Yeah.
And foundation? And short-term rental?
There is one for foundation, I just looked at it.
Can we pop up the one for foundation? So that's what the public will be going through if they punch in a word there, right there, it'll pop up.
No.
Okay.
The system that we are looking at will work a lot quicker. This is because it's a very heavy PDF document. So it's literally looking through everything plus all the redlined documents.
Yeah, your search probably in a lot of those systems can be narrowed to just, and it's primarily a definition section issue because there aren't.
Paul, 4.9, 4-9, page.
And again, this is language Attorney Griggs.
Construction.
I'm sure he's using across the great state of Ohio.
Have we checked this with any other township zoning definitions of construction,
I don't find that to be necessary.
as far as in Delaware County?
Mr. Griggs works with numerous townships and communities across the state. I have full faith that whatever he's provided to us is sufficient.
I check with myself.
Yeah, I just would bring up a point of if we could check with Delaware counties and see what their definition is. Sometimes if we get a more concise definition,
All right. And then you said foundation?
foundation, partner structure. So in the definition, it says to prevent damage from repeated freeze-thaw cycles. Are we supposed to be telling builders how to work here or something, or what? This is supposed to be a definition of a word, not going on to tell people that they must be below the frost line. That's a building thing. That's not a zoning thing. Foundation shall be constructed in accordance with the Ohio Building Code. So if you just want to put the foundation shall be constructed in accordance with the Ohio Building Code, that's fine. But you don't need to write the other stuff in there to prevent damage from repeated freeze-thaw cycles. to the bottom of the foundation, that's a building thing, that's not a zoning issue.
We can always slightly rephrase it.
Not everybody's a builder. Everybody reading this is a builder.
Some review required for this, maybe from some builders for you.
But I think there are some residents who choose to do a lot of this work themselves to save money, and they may not understand the reasoning, so that's why that's in there.
That's not our zoning job to build it for them, see what I'm saying?
We're not. We're
Well-
explaining why we're asking for it.
This is a definition, see what I'm saying?
Well, the
Understand?
definition isn't necessarily going to be an enforceable provision.
Right.
I mean, we could always reword it to say is often located or below the frost line.
I
mean,
think it provides context.
Yeah, it's not meant to be enforced as a,
So maybe we can just look at the verbiage, and if we rework it a little bit.
Absolutely.
we certainly can do that.
Kind of throughout our whole document, it looks like, as far as all definitions, they seem to go on and explain stuff or have examples when they should just be a concise definition of what it is, straightforward, and not complex, and not up to interpretation. Period.
Okay, your last one you wanted to look at was short-term rental?
No, it was average grade.
Okay.
It's under grade. Got it.
Average grade. So this was commented, I don't know if it was commented by any builders, as far as anything goes.
It was.
Do you know who they are? Or can we find out?
Yeah, I discussed this, I asked Ed Snodgrass, who serves on the executive committee of regional plan, he actually just resigned because he's moving out of the county, but Ed Snodgrass is a home builder himself, been doing it for decades.
Right.
I asked Ed to look at this, asked him if this definition made sense. He said yes.
Can we ask a few more people besides Ed? Because
I don't see the,
So I did
and Pete looked
double,
at it.
I did double check a couple places, and this iteration is either identical or really close to what other people have.
In the original 8 inches, I actually got in correspondence with Rick Irvin, one of the county building inspectors. So I guess I have. I've checked with Pete, I've checked with Ed Snodgrass, a home builder, and the county building inspector. So I feel like if they're all telling me, yeah, this is it, this is accurate, this makes sense, then I'm inclined to believe them.
well, I bring
Find
it,
someone who defines it differently, sure, but I think we're going with,
Maybe it can be helpful instead of having this back and forth, is if you have an idea, give us the definition that you want. instead
I
of
did.
us going back and forth.
I already did. I sent it to you guys in that building packet months ago. So it's in your building packet. Because Delaware County has a code that you have to have, and I don't believe it's 8 inches, I believe it's 6 inches of block showing at your foundation wall. So we might have to have a definition of foundation wall in our definitions instead of foundation, so that people and building stuff can understand and have a diagram next to it, what a foundation wall actually is, and show them what the top of foundation wall is.
I think to Mr. Whelan's point,
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I thought you were finished, go ahead.
No. So once they have that drawing, they can actually see, and I think I included that in some of my documents for you guys.
And I
as far
think
as
we
that.
have discussed drawings, and that is not something we're willing to do at this point. We're not going to add drawings to our zoning code.
I think that maybe in the future, we might want to consider adding drawings. to it.
Okay, but
Because
not
a
at
lot
this
of other
time.
places do, and it makes it easy for everybody to understand.
If I may.
Sure.
To Mr. Whelan's point, when we were discussing foundation, we're getting into matters that are really building code matters. The only time the 8 inches would even come into play is when we can't figure out what the actual average grade is, and we need to just make a baseline assumption of it. So a
But
lot of
why-
times, we're gonna have those elevations on the home plan drawings. So this is just, that's just a stopgap. So I don't know if I want to necessarily feel like we need to get really bogged down with really what's gonna be a stopgap. And, I mean, is 8 inches really gonna make or break most of these homes? No. Especially not if we change the height definitions like we're looking at.
Okay. Mr. Whelan?
Back to Delaware County, they recommend that you have 6 inches of block showing. And they also have a code that you have to have 6 inches of fall from that location, 10 feet out away from your house. So once you do that, now your grade is 12 inches down from your foundation wall. And I think that should be the number, that's how we should be determining average grade, not picking a number of 8 inches, 6 inches, 4 inches, whatever. Pick it out based off of the standards of your county, how they determine it.
I asked, I mean, again, I'll state, I talked to the county and the 8 inches, I pulled the email from 2 years
Joe,
ago.
I don't understand. Joe, this is very complicated on some stuff, and if you're not a builder, sometimes you don't get this stuff. And it's easy to talk to inspectors and find out this thing, but then he'll tell you what the height is at the foundation wall, but if you didn't follow up with him and find out what the height was 10 inches away from the wall, then you didn't count that in there. And that's where your grade is going to be seen when you're building any type of a house. That's what the county determines before they sign off on their stuff, is that grade point.
Okay.
So if we want to have something very specific that'll last, and you can put all the blame on the county at that point because that's their codes, we're just going by what the county tells us. And everybody in Delaware County goes playing off the same stuff.
Okay.
If the county wants to be more strict, they can be more strict. Again, 8 inches to 12, we're talking 4 inches. I mean, and again, if we change the building height, I'm sorry, it's just, I feel like, that we're getting the edict to try to simplify things, and then I'm hearing this is a very complicated matter, and we need to move the location. I can't resolve the two. To me, it's unnecessary. Like the building chart, I just find it unnecessarily complicated, and we never get into that degree. I don't know any zoning enforcement officer who gets into that level of degree of reviewing stuff. We're talking 4 inches. I know 4 inches in like building department end of things is very important because building code, you are getting down to inches and millimeters and centimeters. In zoning, it's all feet. Anything less than a foot is so de minimis. The BZA would rubber stamp that
People put
variance.
4 inches of mulch down and then so.
Well, and that's the
it
argument
goes
we've
away,
gotten
so-
is people are like, well, I'll just throw some mulch down and make it
Yeah.
go away. In fact, Liberty also had that problem with, they have that requirement with the gap between the fences and the ground, and they're like, we hate enforcing it because all people do is, we're like, oh, well, you got too big a gap, and the person goes up and kicks some mulch and dirt, okay, close my gap. I'm like, okay, so it's just not really effective, I guess, to really achieve that purpose. Let's let the building department do their thing, and we'll do our thing.
Well, as far as
And
us doing our thing, that's fine. Let's base it on some good standards. Let's just not pull a number out of the air and use that number, okay? Let's base it off some standards that have some teeth as far as the county
We've
stuff.
heard you. And
Okay.
what else do you have?
You brought up 603.11B. Is this some new language about parking on the grass?
I believe you brought this to our attention.
I mean,
I think it was, wasn't it? Or was it
nope, it's somebody else in our neighborhood.
What's the number?
603.11B.
That's the parking on the grass where we added the 72 hours so that we would avoid having,
And what's this for? It's for somebody if he wants to have a big party at their house and have guests over to park on their yard, or?
It's for inoperable cars. sitting
We
in
have
there.
that in our code right now. It's 7 days.
The biggest problem I see with this is the vehicles for sale.
Yeah.
We had one at the corner here not too long ago.
Yeah.
Sat there
But they
for-
have to have it on a paved surface, not on grass.
but people were afraid of is like, what if I had a party at my house and I wanted to have cars parked there? So we added in the language of the 72 hours. Then after 72 hours, they can't have the cars parked. So even, I guess, a car for sale technically could be up Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but come Monday, they could get a zoning violation.
Because we don't have anything in the code for that now, Joe, as far as?
Not for cars. We have stuff for boats and trailers. Cars have never
truck,
been.
as far as passenger cars or stuff?
Passenger cars, motor vehicle, any motor vehicle that's operable.
So the inoperable is the 7 days. This is more looking for,
Yeah.
And
for
sometimes you'll have
sale
a
kind of
combination
thing.
of it. If they've got a car there that's inoperable, or it might not be licensed or whatever, they still can park it out in their front yard. But apparently they're allowed to do that for 7 days right now without being in violation, as long as they move it out of there in 7 days for that stuff. So this is saying that anybody can park in there. And once again, this should be, I don't know if this needs to be noted, that it has to be on their property. It can't be in the right-of-way areas
I don't know
for
that
this type of thing to
matters.
be, for parking.
It's
And
72 hours.
72 hours where, though?
On their private property.
On their private-
Zoning doesn't enforce against right-of-way
right
parking. So that would be immaterial. Goes without saying.
Well, it goes without saying, it shouldn't be in our code, it has to be on private property, or they're gonna park it out in the right-of-way areas.
We don't have the authority to
I don't tell people where they
dictate
dictate whether they're parking in the
Zoning
street or on
does.
the.
You do have that ability on that property as trustees to tell them where they can park the cars, and if it has to be on an impervious surface
Not
or
in the
not.
right-of-way, is what Joe was saying.
I understand, but that's not in there, is it?
No, it's inherent to zoning, though. It's inherent.
Enforce the right of way.
That's what's happening, see
This
it?
is zoning.
Huh?
This is zoning.
Exactly. So I wonder why it's in our zoning or whatever. We're just doing it so that they can park it on your, and is it gonna be in front yards or whatever, or side yards, backyards? Doesn't matter?
You know what, you might be thankful that we have this, if somebody your neighbor parks a junk car in his yard and you have to look at it for 72 hours.
Well, we
That's why
catch
it's
it before
there.
that.
We're not gonna go time cars sitting in the grass for 72 hours. It's gonna be the egregious ones where their car's broken down and sitting in their front yard.
Well, there's a lot of those right now that are, going on for 2 years. or
Well,
whatever.
now
Oh,
it'll
they
be
won't.
enforceable.
Now we can enforce it.
Okay. But it's only for cars and commercial vehicles?
Joe already said that we have it for other, I don't even know.
For boats and trailers
Yeah.
and all
Well,
that.
shouldn't we put them together so it's all, so that everybody knows they're reading one section that covers all this stuff instead of they have to go look at 2 different things for campers and boats and trailers and,
I don't know.
Kayak
Where
carriers?
is the other, what section is all of the other stuff in?
It was in 19, which is the parking standards section. That whole section, I didn't stick in that section because that entire section is boats and trailers. We'd have
Okay.
to,
All right.
so. I'm not sure it terribly matters.
well, from a landowner, I think it would matter as far as if you're looking at stuff in the book, so you're not looking all over the place. If you look at one spot for parking standards, you can find all the parking standards for what you have for your car, your truck, your trailer, your kayak carrier, whatever you have, so.
Okay, you've made your point. We'll look into it.
Yeah, we can move it to Article 19, that's fine.
Okay.
But we'll just put it in a different section. I can already think of where I'm probably would put it.
Okay.
On 1104.7A, I think, something about the new noise standards.
There's a few different ones.
Yeah,
That's noise.
that's noise, okay. So would this be something that's should be in the residential areas also, as far as looking for it, when you're looking through like SR, RR, or PRD, when you're looking in those zoning areas, wouldn't it be easier to find it in there than going to one other section?
This is just for commercial because the noise resolution primarily deals with residential. The noise resolutions under ORC are very forgiving to non-residential uses. There's only certain non-residential uses that fall under it. So this would be, again, for egregious offenders. We're not going to be, out
And
there.
this, okay,
policing
this
all
is
the
just for
noise.
commercial areas then?
Correct,
Yeah, because residential's already covered by the noise resolution,
which is outside of zoning.
which is, yeah, correct. And police is going to be way more effective at enforcing it.
Do we have it in our zoning resolution then for residential?
You don't need to.
Out then, or it's not in there
No,
anymore?
it was a resolution passed by the trustees before any of us have been.
We've
here.
never had, I think, noise stuff for just street resolution,
Yeah.
or residential. At least not in a long time.
It's actually, so 505.172 is the trustee's ability to regulate noise that's generated in areas zoned for residential use. It's outside of zoning. It is a second-degree misdemeanor. It's a criminal offense, so, which is
That's how
enforced
it's
by our,
enforced.
it's enforced by our police department. So that's the reason why it's not included in your zoning. So almost all townships will only address noise generated in commercial, industrial areas through zoning.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the police process is also going to be a lot more efficient and faster than anything zoning would ever be able to.
Correct, when an officer shows up and tells you to turn it down, you typically turn it down.
Okay. What else?
Section 1609, accessory buildings.
I don't think that was changed.
Correct.
brought up a comment about the charts, and I had turned in some stuff about charts. And that's Joe's opinion, I have my opinion. But going against Joe's opinion, one of the things I did bring up and talked about before, and it's in some of the packets to give you, that the zoning commission didn't even review, was the height limits on accessory buildings, especially on 2-acre lots and up to 3-acre lots. So right there under D, you've got the maximum height shall not exceed 22 feet on a lot under 2 acres in size. And the guy next door that has 2.11 acres gets to build a building 35 feet high.
Right.
That's the reason for the charts. The charts break it down so that that guy next door gets to build his building a little taller because he has a little more land, but he doesn't get to build it 35 feet tall. He only gets to build it 24 feet tall because he only has 2.1 acres. He doesn't have the same land as the guy that has 4.99 acres who can build his building 35 feet tall possibly, since he has that much land. That's where the charts come into play that Joe is missing on this stuff. And that's one of the flaws that we have right now in our current stuff we should not accept. So that a guy just having 1/10 of an acre more can build a building that much higher than his neighbor can.
But we're gonna have that situation regardless of where you put the number, whether it's 2
No, you're
and
not.
2.1 or 3 and 3.1, 4, I mean. you
See,
can
that,
just go-
excuse me,
The,
if I could go on here for a little bit without Joe commenting, he can comment later on, but let me just explain here. There are some charts and stuff, and there are ways to do this. It's just not this way to do it. There's other ways to do it. Franklin County has been doing this for years with their chart. For years and years it's been going on, and it works out just fine. And it's fair to all the residents. And if you look at their chart, it's divided up so it is an equal type of a thing. Once you get more land, you get a bigger building. And that's what trustees are supposed to do, is to
You have given all three of us your chart. We've all reviewed it.
And I do think, I'm
Yeah.
gonna speak, I do think that there is value in it, and I do think it's something worth looking at. The more I've kind of studied, and he shared the Franklin, I do think it makes sense. I understand where Joe's coming from too, saying, like, where's those lines? But I do think it's something worth us exploring and looking at.
Yeah, because we wanted to get into this document to make things more consistent and stuff for everybody and stuff too. And when you do something like this, that's not a consistent thing going from 22 feet to 35
So
feet.
if we did a chart, would you get rid of this paragraph and just have a chart?
Exactly.
or we could, the other option is you could just allow 35 feet everywhere and not even have the situation. I mean, frankly, I wonder, what is the height difference between, if the house principal building can be 35 feet, are you really vertically changing anything by an accessory building being
It depends on your lot size.
35 feet?
It depends on your lot size.
You
Somebody
theoretically,
in a PRD can't do that.
Mr. Whelan, I'm sorry, I was
You're
not
doing the
finished
same. I'm
yet.
just following up on your stuff.
So you could build your entire principal structure at that maximum height and cover out your lot coverage and not have any accessory buildings. And the bulk of the lot that's gonna be covered with that scale of building is the same as if you had done a principal building and accessory building at the exact same heights. You're not gaining anything. I just didn't ask for the 35 personally, if I was writing this, I would have just done 35 feet everywhere.
Yeah.
I just wasn't willing to change it because I wasn't sure it was going to be a
I
popular
don't have a
change.
problem with everybody being able to build at 35 feet.
Nobody does that anywhere in Delaware County. Nobody. And you're not thinking all the stuff that can happen because of what you just said there, Renee.
Okay.
Because of the larger size lots and the smaller lots, that type of business. See, this goes through the whole, this
But
goes down to
my
zoning.
point
This is for
is-
zoning.
If the primary building, like Joe said, can be 35 feet, what does it matter the height of the accessory building? You already have a structure on that property that's 35 feet tall.
Right, and you have setbacks for that, don't you?
Yeah.
Bigger ones than you do for accessory buildings.
Yeah,
So
true.
all
Yeah,
that
so
has
it's
to
your
change.
yeah.
This whole thing spirals down and affects other stuff.
Okay.
This
Fair
is,
point.
there's the Franklin, just so
Yeah,
that you guys
yeah,
have a
yeah,
quick
I've had
visual.
it.
And
I
they've
have it.
even made
Yep.
some adjustments too.
And they make adjustments for their setbacks according to your lot sizes. So it's a nice system that approaches the size of your
Looks at the
buildings
whole-
per
My
lot.
preference, though, is if we're doing a chart, get rid of the paragraph and just have a chart. I think, like you said, it's just going to make it complicated.
No, a chart works
you have-
really nice if you have it.
I'm
sorry.
saying I would rather not have both, a paragraph and a chart.
Oh, exactly. Well, you don't need the paragraph if you have the chart.
Exactly.
It's just per the chart, that's what you get. Everybody looks right at,
Is that the chart?
Yeah.
Everybody looks at their lot size and they can tell what they can build there.
So I guess we could task the two of you to tweak one?
Well, I mean, Pete gave us one, I can look at that, of what he gave us.
Okay.
You know, I don't want anything too lengthy, if that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
I do think you're gonna end up with, if you make it more strict than it is now, you're gonna get a lot of variance requests, and they're gonna get approved, because they're gonna point to all these ones that have been built over the last 40 years and
That's
say,
not-
I'm not materially
That-
changing the character of the neighborhood,
I would
so.
say look at that then, when you're,
If we do something, I would not make it more strict than what it is.
Let's move this along.
Yep.
We'll look at it.
Yep.
We'll
Yeah,
consider
because
this. I think there's some
we're gonna run
validity
out
to
of
this,
time before
but
we
we're
need
not
to be at
gonna
our
do it
next
tonight.
meeting.
yeah.
So Joe and I,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
There are a lot of other areas that I could go over here. I know you're pressed for time. What I would suggest, if I could hold back on what I have now, or I could go over some of this stuff if you have a
I
little
would
more time.
prefer you send it to us, email it to us.
With the sending an email stuff, I can send it to you, but I'd like, a lot of this stuff needs to be explained. You know, I can send all this stuff to you, and no offense to anybody and stuff, but there's a lot of things in building that other peoples don't understand because they've never built a house. So determine the actual sizes of houses and stuff, and to be able to take truss drawings and figure out how tall that building is based off of that stuff. That's a lot of complex stuff that can be explained to you. It's hard to get that from just sending it in a document to somebody. If I send this stuff to you, if I could have a meeting with you separately and go over it to review it, that would be ideal. Because I'm not getting any feedback. I didn't see anything in Exhibit G as far as any of your stuff, as far as all the questions that you asked back in October 15th at the meeting. And Joe was going to stay laser focused on a lot of the stuff and get you replies to all that stuff. That's never been presented back to the public from that point.
I don't know, I feel like that's what this list is for. I
But
personally
we don't
sat down
have-
with him.
Exactly, but the public's
And
not
went through
seeing
my
that.
check marks and said, okay, has this been done, has this been done? I've done that.
I understand, but you brought it up at the meetings, and we weren't able to talk about it at that meeting or whatever and stuff. A lot of times, we didn't even have a seat at the table at a couple of those meetings. And so we couldn't follow up on it.
Well, you've always
And
had
we
a
can't
seat
fi-
at the table, we just didn't allow public comment for a couple of them, just so we
Right.
can get some work done.
Okay.
I would say it's important to note that sometimes the lack of action is the response.
Exactly.
Just following up, I feel like we're pushing and pushing to try to change things, and I feel like the commission and the board has sort of sent a clear message that there's not an interest to change that, and continuing to belabor that
That was
point
never, well, some of these
is
were
is
never
really not
discussed.
productive. The
Yeah,
I feel like the board has made its decision. Now, if you want to change your decision, then that's all you, obviously, but at some point, it becomes just the decision's been made, and some people are going to like the decision and others
They
aren't.
make the decision, Joe, that's what I'm wondering, if the decision is being made by staff
It's
or the
not.
trustees.
No,
Okay.
we all
Because
meet with
it's
him.
imposed that it's made already
No,
for you guys.
we've all met with him.
Okay. Well, to be fair, I'd like you to all meet with me then, so I can give you a fair assessment
have
of it.
met- I
And I'd
believe-
like you to meet with Ed Snodgrass.
You met with him, I met with him
So
multiple times.
Yep.
there's a couple of things that Rick and I talked about when we met that I do think have some value that I would like to spend some time with Joe on, specifically related to signs. You know, looking at some of the sign language, it does increase potentially some over 50 to 60%. So I would like to spend some time with that. And then accessory dwelling units, I think that needs a little bit of time. The accessory buildings, we've already talked about. I think the chart would be a good way to go. But those were some of the areas, and I think he's talked a little bit about grade and height. And I think we just need to figure out, are we coming from the aspect of zoning or the aspect of a builder? So, and I think that's maybe where some of the mixed with grade and height are coming in. But I do think there's some things I put my notes together that I would like to talk to Joe about. I don't think that they're gonna hold us up, even if we were to say, okay, there's some of this that we're gonna leave the language as it currently is so that we can keep moving on with everything else. You know, I want to keep the process moving forward, and I know we
Agreed.
want to put a pen in this because it's been a long time.
Yep.
Um,
But I also want to write.
But yes, I agree. I agree.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be a good, yeah, if you guys. could
So
consider-
those were the things, the sign height, the accessory dwellings, the accessory buildings, and then the height and the grade. So,
Yeah, we can talk about it all.
okay.
Yeah, because there were a lot of questions brought up throughout this as far as what swimming pools are. Are they considered an
Accessory
accessory?
You've
building.
been asking that
Yeah.
for a long time, and I believe that we're going to keep them separate.
Okay,
They were separate,
they're a
I don't
separate.
even know what you want to
Orange-
call it.
or-
It's in a
orange-
category by itself.
Well, how come we can't put it in a category with everything?
Take,
I
Joe,
think we've addressed that.
take a look at Orange and their new, they do a pretty good job with addressing pools.
Candidly, I feel like our swimming pool regulations are working out just fine. I feel
Okay.
like we're trying to fix something that's not broken.
Okay.
Well, what we're
We've had
fixing,
zero problems with the swimming pools.
well, the only problems you have with swimming pools are variances for fences and that type of issue. Plus
We
you
have
have,
seen some of that,
you have variances for setbacks, a lot of variances for setbacks for
Setbacks.
swimming pools.
but I wouldn't call that a
Because we
problem.
don't-
We're always gonna have variance, I'm sorry.
Well, you're not gonna have a variance if you don't allow it in certain areas or you have parameters. A lot of lots that we have here in the township aren't big enough for a house and a swimming pool on it. Sorry. If you want a swimming pool and you have that small lot, you're just gonna have to go buy a bigger lot. You can't just put a pool
You and
on
I
it.
have discussed this at nauseum, and I disagree with your opinion.
Okay,
Yeah, I have a different
I do
opinion.
too, that's why we have a BZA. That's exactly why we have a BZA, to give these property owners a chance to present a case and on its merits, if it passes, if it doesn't, if it's egregious, it's not gonna get approved. That's why we have a BZA, for these exact issues.
And the law requires you to accept variance applications. You can't prohibit them.
exactly.
You have to.
There's no world where we're gonna write zoning where we can say, no one can do this, and that's just not possible.
Well, you are. You're writing zoning now that nobody can build a building over 22 high feet under a 3-acre lot.
Okay,
Can
Rick,
come and request a variance.
Huh?
if you could wrap it up and then send us your items, I will follow up with you.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate you bringing all this to our attention.
Could I ask one question while I'm up here quick?
Yeah, real
1
quick.
minute.
Is it zoning related?
Yeah, Paul, could you pull up section 1615? Why did we take out fill and vegetation for the site distance requirement? My question comes into play if you go outside of our building right now and look at the lot over on Olive Grove. They've had a pile of dirt stacked up there for 6 to 8 months already since they started construction, which I would say that that is a pile of fill that we should have some zoning regulations on. It shouldn't be there. It's messing up the site from that corner. If you come down through that stop sign, you can't see any traffic until you get up to where you park almost and stuff. So if somebody's running that stop sign, there could be some trouble there. But nobody's addressing this stuff or whatever. The sign has been out there since day one.
We
the
are
old rusted
addressing
sign.
that. The zoning has been in communication with the applicant, property owner.
Okay.
They
Well, I
have
wa- Okay, well, sometimes if we, from a public standpoint, then I don't know if there's gonna be a board put up so that people can see the stuff's gonna be happening on some of this stuff or not. But like I said, it's been going on for 8 months, and still nothing's been done.
I will say there's probably language in this that needs to be tightened up, because if we're taking out vegetation, there's references to planting and stuff that need to get removed too.
What,
We don't regulate grading, so that's why Phil's coming out.
We don't regulate what, sorry?
We don't regulate
Grading.
grading, that's
Oh,
all.
grading,
that-
okay.
That falls under that's an engineering item. Same with right-of-way. If any of that item's in the right-of-way, that's gonna fall under any of the jurisdictions that own that right-of-way, and again, engineering. So,
do we need this in there then?
That's why they're taking Phil out.
No, the whole section. Well, nobody's gonna build a structure in there.
not legally.
Some of these mailboxes are big enough to be a structure.
We don't count them as a structure.
I think it's in there as a fail-safe.
Yeah, who cares? If it's there to protect property owners, then that's got its purpose, right?
That's why I leave it in there, the fill and vegetation, I'd leave in there, instead of taking it out.
The fill and vegetation don't require zoning permits, that's why it's coming out.
Oh, so like if somebody were to plant a tree,
Yeah, I'm not gonna get
You
involved with
can't,
it.
we can't.
Zoning doesn't
yeah, we
regulate
don't
people's
Okay,
landscape.
that's why.
All right, thanks, Rick.
But if they're gonna plant a structure or build it. Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's just, they can still plant a tree. We can't say anything about the tree, but they can't build a structure.
As far as zoning, can't say it.
Yes.
That's what, okay.
Yeah, so if it's impeding, then you would contact whoever owns that
Right away.
right away. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you. All right. Let's go
So-
to, I guess,
No, I was just gonna say, just to
Go
kind of
ahead.
put a pin in that, Joe and
Yeah.
I will get together. We'll discuss the items that have been brought forth and keep moving forward. Thank you, Joe, for all the work that you've done, and thanks, Pete, for helping us out.
I have a few questions. I was going to ask about average grade, but it sounds like Rick brought it up. I was curious of trustee Antonetz's, have you looked at it? Are you okay with
I
that?
struggled with that too, because we use the word in the definition. It doesn't help. And then I searched for Google average grade, and it's take the difference of the two extremes, and that's your average.
Pete was just telling me, a lot of communities don't even define grades, so I mean, we could always just take it out and make it a no longer defined term. If it's causing that much
I like the
consternation.
one you presented, was it Snodgrass, about the elevation of the garage as the basis for height?
Yeah. The
And
only
there's
issue is
no-
we're not
there's no
always,
judgment.
the height measure, we're not always dealing with houses with garages. Like, this has to get
Yeah.
applied to universally to all construction, so. We must be having some serious Wi-Fi issues in here tonight. So that's the only reason. So, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to butt in on your discussion there.
No, it's good. So what do we want to do with this then, with grade?
Let's put a pin on that one too. I'd like to do a little bit of homework to see
Okay.
if there's a better
So,
option.
Mark's gonna do homework.
And then the whole height, kind of wanted trustee Antonetz's.
And it got cleaned up from the highest point, clears that all up.
So you're all
Sees
good?
The highest point on the structure.
Okay.
So when we're,
Non-residential.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're keeping the way we measured non-residential. So Mark was here for actually when we made this change, because he was involved with the reason we wanted to make that change. So basically what happened is, I won't say which non-residential development was, but it came out at a height that we weren't as happy with. So we changed it, but when we changed it, I think it was sort of we probably impacted more than we had really should have. And so we're just trying to walk back the residential component, because it was, what we did made sense for non-residential, but was injurious. And two, we made it more restrictive for residential. And just like I said, when you can, making things more restrictive than they've been for decades generally doesn't work well, because people are gonna come and ask for variances, and they're gonna say, well, why was it okay for 40 years and now it's a problem? Kind of thing. So you gotta be careful when you do that. And so all we're asking is for that residential only, for that definition to go back to what it was in this township for a long, long time.
Right.
And that's because we got complaints, and the complaints brought to our attention, oh, we have an issue here, we need to address it.
Listen, you've had your piece.
does it make sense to go back to an older definition? I mean,
With the houses we're getting built here, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're not getting any smaller.
All right. And I won't list them all because this is repeated. 703.10, verbiage is repeated throughout the document in 903.10, 1203.11, 1303.11. The number 4. Why are we saying that they have, a divergent shall be required to not install required sidewalks? Why do we have to specify that? I feel like that's common sense. If you're not going to install a sidewalk that our code requires, you'll need a divergence.
Trying to think back, we drafted that change a while ago. Yeah, I mean, you're correct in your assessment that it doesn't have to be in there.
I just wanted to know why it's in there.
I think it was maybe we're just trying to give a little bit more direction.
People requesting divergences? I don't know.
While previously, we had said you could just do the easement in lieu of, and I think Trustee Vaughn, you and I specifically had conversations about that, and we were on the same page that ideally we would just make people put them in. We didn't like the easement option, so we wanted to take the next step.
It's a requirement, take it out.
Yeah, we
You
don't
can
have to
take it
have.
out.
we don't
Really
have to
didn't
have the
want to
section.
encourage a divergence.
Yeah,
is-
that's fine. Take it out.
Okay.
I don't have issues with that, because you're correct, they can always,
So that is repeated many times?
yeah, we'll just fix it in every.
Okay, all right.
So that's.
It started with
703.10.4.
703.10.4. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
we'll-
but I think all of this is repeated
Yeah, I'll catch it in all
because it's
those
number
areas.
4 for each one. That's all I have.
Yep.
Anybody else?
No, it's a great.
Shared mine.
All right. Trustee Antonetts, do you have anything? Where do we want to go from here? What do we, direction?
I do think, though, I think I'm remembering why this is in
Okay,
there.
tell me.
Sorry, I had to read it. A little bit closer. I think this is in here because we don't want people to just get a divergence to not do the sidewalk. And just say, well, I want a divergence not to do the sidewalk. So this is prescribing that if you are going to ask for that divergence, you have to give us the easement instead.
Okay.
Oh,
That
yeah, I remember
standard-
that.
Okay, all right.
That standard
Thank
does
you.
not list, and I'm sorry, this is why sometimes I have to jog my memory, it takes a
okay.
minute. That requirement doesn't exist in the divergence review standards, so this is gonna be above and beyond the divergence review
Got it.
standards.
Okay,
So, yes, that, I
Okay.
knew there was a reason I did that.
All
would
right,
not
I
have
know.
done that.
Sidewalks, and if you don't do the
you
sidewalks,
turn your
then
mic
you
on. Yeah, thanks.
So it's sidewalks.
Yeah.
And then if you don't do the sidewalks,
You have
you have to
do
give
these.
the, you have to
You can't
give the
just get a
easement.
carte blanche,
Yep.
just, we don't
Yep.
put in
It's one or
sidewalks.
the other.
We'll say you don't have to put the sidewalk in, but you're still gonna give us the easement.
Yeah,
If we're willing to grant the divergence.
yep, okay, got it. Makes sense.
And then, obviously, if for whatever reason they can't do the easement, then we would have to diverge that, but that's, we'll cross that bridge if we ever come to it.
Okay. All right, do we want to continue? You're going to follow up. I want Rick to follow up with us. I think Trustee Antonetts has a couple homework items.
And I'll meet with you if it makes sense. We can talk about it after.
I'd rather you meet with one of us, and he can relay it, if you're going to do it. You can't meet with both of us at a time. Okay, I'm like, okay. All right. Joe had sent us a list of dates for a continuance.
That was in an email, right?
Yeah, it was in an email.
I don't think, I mean, depending on when Trustee McMurray and I can meet, I mean, there's nothing here that I think is gonna be significant in terms of time needed to do some of the work. I mean, not to put you on the spot, I'm just,
No, well, even if we did a couple of, I could just take a couple lunches. and
yeah, I just
you
don't
and
want you to
could-
think, oh, Joe needs like 2 months to do all that, like that.
No, yeah, no. So, let's see, we are at the 9th. What's good for you? When's our next regular trust, the 14th?
Tomorrow.
You ready for
Tomorrow we meet.
One in April for 14.
Oh, do you want to meet before that, like at 5?
That would work for me. That work for you?
It's been an hour and a half.
You don't think it's enough time? Okay, you have a separate
Okay.
meeting?
That's fine, whatever you guys.
I want to meet earlier. Can you get earlier? 4?
So the 14th, let me look. Oh, I went to May.
I can do the 14th.
what time you want to
Anytime after
start?
afternoon.
I can move some stuff around, that's fine. And I'll just, yeah, I can take some time off.
What time you want to meet? 4:30? You think that's enough time? That's 2 hours.
Yeah. Before 6:30 regular meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I mean, I think
4:30
you
on the
lose-
14th.
You lose production after so long that you start going in circles, so.
Yep. Okay, you got that, 4:30 on the 14th?
Special meeting, Tuesday the 14th. 4:30. Get that advertised.
Okay. All right, so, look. I move to continue the public hearing from the subject zoning text amendment, also known as CC case number 2024-05, until April 14th at 4:30 PM in the Township Hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll.
Roll call, trustee Antonetts? Trustee McMurray?
Yes.
Trustee Vaughn?
Yes, motion carries. And I will move to adjourn at 6:26 PM. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll.
Antonetts?
Yes.
Trustee McMurray?
Yes.
Trustee Vaughn?
Yes, we're adjourned, 6:26.